Hey guys, it's Ben. I'm back again, and I wanted to discuss my incubator setup. I started with a basic Farm Innovations. It's a forced air incubator, which, it's kind of a notch up from just a basic one. But I've kind of had a lot of trial and error with this, and it's been a really good incubator. But I have kind of gradually, slowly made a lot of modifications to it. Um, it works great, but the first thing I kind of ran into is, humidity control. It's got the little ports on the side. You got to like pour water in them, and it, I didn't want to deal with all that. I want to keep the humidity good. Just kind of keep it close. It doesn't have to be perfect. There's a lot of discussion on humidity control and how much humidity they have to have and dry hatches. We're not going to get into all that. But if you do want to have good control of your humidity, this is one of the first things I did to make this incubator, and you could do this to make any incubator very, very precise. And this is a set and forget system. First thing we're going to start with is I tried out this Inkbird. This is a humidity controller. I've had it for a couple of years now, and it is working phenomenally. This is a great little controller. But you take this, and then I kind of started researching, and I'm like, how can I control the humidity? Like, what can I get to pump it in there? And I had looked at a lot of different things, and I gave something a try. And I, caught it on sale. But I found an Inkbird. This is actually a reptile fogger. That's what this is. Very simple dial setup. You fill it up. This will last me until lockdown. Then I have to fill it fully up again because I bumped my humidity up on lockdown. But the little filler hose, it's just a little plastic hose. It's lightweight. Great. Now, what I've done with that is I took it, paired these two together, humidity controller, fogger, and I played with it. And then what I found is if I set the fogger on low, like just barely turn it up, it's got a dial on it right here. Pick this up. This dial controls the humidity. And I'm gonna tell you what, if you crank this thing up, it will pump some fog out of it. But I will turn it down here right about 2 to 3 notch right in here. And what it does is it gives me gradual humidity. It isn't just pumping it in there. So, and ideally that's what I wanted. I didn't want like this cold fog being pumped into my, incubator and somehow affecting my hatches. But then I found that, again, it was just gradual. It did a really good job in controlling my humidity and keeping it within a range. Now, the great thing about this, it's very easy to set up. These little temp controllers and humidity controller in this case, very simple to set up. Just basic instructions. And what I like about it is you can set kind of like, you want to say 40% humidity. That's generally what I have mine set on from day 1 or day 0 to day 15. And what it does is you've got like a plus or minus in there when you set it up. You can do like 3 or 4% over or 3 or 4% below. You've got a range you can set it to cut on and off. I mean, you could set it as, 1% below, 1% above, and it will keep cutting on and off within that range. Which I didn't want a thing running like on and off all the time. So I set it, between about, 3% below, 5% above. That way it's running, then it cuts off. Then I started doing something else. And, I'm just going to show you. But I started putting towels in the bottom of my incubator. And this actually, I didn't even do this to control the humidity. I did this for easier cleanup in my incubator. I cut towels, I covered the inside bottom of it, and where the little port was, the fogger feed line, we'll just call it that, where that comes through, I would cut a little square so the fog would come in. And not only did the towels in the bottom, you know, when your little birds are running and they're pooping and stuff, make for an easier cleanup, it also helped hold humidity better. And I noticed this. I noticed that humidity stayed a little bit more accurate. And I tested these results. I got a little Govee. It reads humidity, it tracks it, not just reads it, but it tracks your humidity and it tracks your temperature. And this is a big key when I got this to help me evolve my incubator setup a little bit. All right, this is my Govee. This thing, I mean, you can see it's working right now. You download an app, you pair it up. Man, it just, this is a game changer right here. If you're trying to find issues in your incubator, if you've got a custom built incubator, if you've got a basic incubator like this one, this will help you identify issues. Now, a couple things you do have to do is it's good to have old school, you know, like temperature. Like I've got stick thermometers I put in here. I put a stick thermometer in top of my incubator. You know, oh man, I can't remember what the barometer, I can't remember what it's called. The thing that measures humidity in there. Somebody correct me in the comments, but I can't remember what it is. But I had just an old school one, just around. You set it in here, and you want to kind of calibrate these because you can calibrate this and calibrate this. And then get them set up properly because there is some variance. But once you get this dialed in with temperature and humidity, and you get this dialed in with humidity, man, they are a great tool for controlling and maintaining and notifying you. Not only, all right, I'm just gonna back up. This will know if you get a Wi-Fi enabled one of these, or a Wi-Fi enabled one of these, which I would highly recommend doing. If you're out at the grocery store, if you are at work, if you are outside doing chores, let's say something's malfunctioning. The temp's not working right? Let's say this runs out of water for some weird reason, which I don't think that would happen, or it's not working. Say you got kids like me and one of them hit the dial or something, you know, dog knocked it over. There's no telling. There's a list of things that could happen. This right here, because it is not hooked up, it's got a little battery in it. If our power gets knocked out in a room or something gets unplugged, you can set this right here to send you alerts. Man, and you can set it will blow your phone up. And if there's an issue going on, this can save you from losing a hatch. You know, if I'm at work all day and I get a notification in the middle of the day that my incubator temperature has dropped down to 95 degrees, actually I set mine at 97 to alert me. It will start alerting you to your phone. Have your settings on your phone set so this can communicate with you and make you aware of what's going on. So this not only can help you set, track, because it has a little graph where it just tracks out your humidity, tracks out your temperature and variances throughout the day, all day, every day while it's running. So definitely check this out if you're serious about doing some hatching. And even if you're not, man, 20 bucks or 25 bucks, I think I got it on sale. This is well worth the investment, and it can save you from losing a hatch. But these great tools, which, you know, they work phenomenally. You know, I still believe my old school thick stick thermometers and stuff to make sure everything's working properly and make sure everything's calibrated properly. But technology is very amazing, and for a minimal cost here, I can really keep track of everything really well. Now I'm going to go through and I'm going to show you kind of how I basically set up my incubator when I put my eggs in to run a hatch. Now you can see what I've done here. I covered this bottom with blue towels. I've got my little port here. I just cut a little slot in here, push that tab down. And what this does, I try to put it right up here on the lip the best that I can. You know, sometimes it doesn't always want to do it, but pretty close. And I will just take my tray and I will set it down in here. Now that will absorb some of that, and it doesn't saturate this because most of it will come up through here. So it does a really good job. But if there's any extra moisture, like before, like in here, man, I would always have a ton of moisture on this. Now on lockdown I do because I bumped the humidity up to about 55%. But the first, 0 to 15 days, I don't get a bunch of moisture buildup using this system. But this right here helps quite a bit. Now the second thing I'll do is I will take another layer of towels and I will cover just underneath my egg turner. All right, so what I've done is I've put another layer, cut a little slot here. Actually, I need to cut that a little bit more, but that's okay. And then I will take my egg turner and I will set right here on top. Now you're probably going, why would I put another layer of towels underneath that screen? The reason why I put another layer of towels there is because if you have ever had an egg bust during incubation, it will seep out and will cover the mesh and it stinks. So what do? I put that top layer of paper towels in there for the first 15 days just in case I have an egg that has failed and it's somehow gotten rotten and it busts open in my incubator. I've only had this happen a couple of times because I look over my eggs well, but I'll tell you what, doing that is one of the best things I've ever done. Now, let's say everything's fine, which normally it is. I'll take the towels out, I'll set them aside. Once my hatch is done, I'll take those, put them in the bottom, and I'll just reuse them. But laying that layer of towels there, the couple of times I've had eggs fail, man, I'm gonna tell you something, it's pretty gross. It seeps down, it puts this thick sludge in your incubator on the tray, then it soaks all the way down, gets in the bottom of the foam, and it will make you gag. My wife, first time it happened, she could smell that in the other room, and she was like, "Woo!" I didn't know what was going on, but definitely a good little tip to keep you from having some funk in there, because you get the egg out, you've got to remove it immediately. You have to find it and remove it. And then when it comes to lockdown, candle your eggs, obviously remove the nasty top layer of paper towels. Luckily, that top layer will catch it. It won't get past them. So the bottom layer is good underneath underneath it. But, man, I'm thinking about it. It was bad. But take that top layer out, get your egg turner out, immediately clean your egg turner. And then you've just got the mesh below it. And that's how I do my lockdown. I'll remove that top layer of paper towels I just put down, candle, just put my birds on that plastic mesh that comes in here. That way they have something to grip to. One time I left the paper towels in there. I didn't like it so much. It did all right. And then I found some of these blue shop towels that had like this octagon mesh. That worked pretty good, but just kind of a waste of paper towels. I just ended up using the mesh on lockdown. Just does a good job. Right now, my humidity is really high. And we've had a lot of moisture in there. Right now, it's 50.4. So what we're going to do is I want to show you how this runs. Just hold set. You can turn it all the way up. We'll just say it's locked down. I generally don't put it on 60 for lockdown, but we're going to set this thing on 60. Yep, just keep it bumped up. I've already got this one dialed in pretty good. And as you can see, I mean, it's pretty accurate. And that two is your cut on, and this is your cut off, and then alarm high. I mean, it's pretty simple. Let's just go ahead and set it. All right, we're good to go. It just cut on, which I should probably plug in my fogger. Get that plugged in real quick. Now I've got her set, and I don't know if you can see that. I should probably remove the egg turner. If you can see that, it's a very gradual fog if you don't have it turned up all the way on high. This is high. And that's, you know what, it's really hard to see. You can more see a shadow, but it is really pumping some fog out. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn this down. I'm gonna turn it all the way down to about the 3rd notch. And now you can't even hardly see it in a video. It is still pumping it out, but it's very gradual. And what it is, it's a cold fogger. So I didn't want to pump a bunch of cold fog in here. So this little setup works really well. Now the sensor, you got to make sure you blow this out and keep it clean. That's just as simple as putting a little notch in here. And when I put the lid on, it will hold this up tight with the egg tray in it. All right, egg turner's in, and I'll put my little sensor, I just, close enough to the center. And believe it or not, I've never had an issue with an egg here. Never. I mean, I'll still put, a regular sized egg right there, and it will just gradually kind of roll over it. I've never had an issue with this. But this is kind of how I do my basic setup with my incubator. I love the little forced air on this. It's done a great job. But this is how I set it up. How you do your temps and how you do your humidity. There's always some variance in that. I've seen 99.5 up to 100.5. You've really got to play with the incubator and get it dialed in from this. I'm going to go back and I want to show you something. If you decide to get a fogger or something similar to this feed pipe. Now, I've got it coming up and instantly bending over. And I want to keep this as short as possible. I've actually thought about trimming it and doing something with the end. But I'll keep all of this pulled together. Now, I'll have a gradual slope, and I'll try to have it angled straight down. If you take this, and let's say you pull it all the way down flat like this, all the condensation is going to build up. It's going to build up right here, and it's going to be water. The fog is not going to make it into your incubator. So you want to have a good gradual slope going straight into it. That's something I learned the hard way. Should have read the instructions properly on how to use it, but a good slope. You don't want to have this flattened out. I actually have this a little bit higher, so when it comes out, it comes down, and it's sitting like this, straight into my incubator. That way there's no low spots. All the moisture comes straight down right into it, and if any moisture does build up, it's going to slowly run down, and it's going to make its way into the incubator. It's going to soak into the blue towels, and just the heat's going to pull that humidity back out of the towels. And also, again, these blue towels, any extra moisture, it doesn't go to waste. The air circulating and stuff in here is going to pull that moisture back out of them, and they do not stay soaking wet whatsoever. All right, there you go. That's how I set up my incubator. The blue towels, them towels help keep the cleanup down to a minimal. When you've got the babies running around in there, the towels in the very bottom, it makes cleanup so much easier. It really does. But one day, man, I was wanting to build me a cabinet incubator, or just, a bigger incubator. I was looking at buying them, and I was like, I had this idea. I was like, why don't I just expand the one I have? And I had 2 incubators running. I have another incubator as well. And I'm sitting there thinking, I was like, man, how could I take this cheap incubator and run 2 hatches in one incubator? So I came up with an idea for a really cheap expansion pack. Oh yeah, you heard it. I'm gonna show you how I added a level to my incubator. I'm gonna go over some of the details, little bit of trial and error I did, so this might interest you, but if not, I hope the first part of this video helps you out and, makes cleanup a little bit easier. But now, I'm gonna show you my expansion pack, and we're gonna talk about some of the things I went through to make this happen. This is my expansion pack to my incubator. This is simply some old foam board that I had, and I cut it and notched it to fit the bottom and the top. Now, it's a little bit more than that. If you look down in here, I've got 2 pipes with fans really close to the heater and forced air. So I'm going to take this lid off and let's take a look on the inside and see what I've done. Right here is my second level. Now, what I did here is I made it so this sensor was just sitting just above the eggs. I mean, it's virtually touching them. Now, it took a little bit of trial and error to get this down pat, which I'm not going to go over specs for it, but hopefully this can give you an idea of how to do this yourself if you want to. I'm going to tell you the first mistake I made. This is a forced air fan. If you see underneath this egg turner, which I do have the egg turner screwed down to this, because it was an old one, it got a little bit warped, but it still functions well. Not going to get into that. But I was hoping that this fan would push through the eggs into the bottom. It will not. I initially cut a big hole right here in this board, and then after testing it, I realized the bottom, man, it was staying 6 degrees cooler than the top. Now, this was an issue. I had drilled a hole here, a hole in the corner, hole in the corner, hole in the corner, and then we have this hole over here on this side, which we'll get into that. But my good old Govee, when I was testing it, I had really bad cold wells in areas. So me thinking that that forced air fan was going to push past the eggs, past this tray, and keep the bottom warm, that was not realistic. So what have I done? I'm going to pull this off real quick. I've got a whole floor here. I had to notch this area out for the egg turner below. Now you're thinking, oh my goodness, the eggs are going to touch the bottom of this. No, they're not. Because there's so much room in these the incubators. It's really a waste of heated space the way they design these. They're not very efficient. But right here, I had to slot this out. I put me a small vent hole in this corner and another small hole right back here in this corner. It's sitting right under this. No holes in the middle. Then I got me 2 22 millimeter computer fans, and they have little low, medium, and high switches, which is great. And I got them mounted right here. Now you're probably wondering, what is this pipe for? If you go back, and I'm going to go ahead and set this back on here real quick. These pipes and these little fans were the key to me being able to make this incubator work very efficiently. Now to get these to fit over the fans, as you can see here, I meticulously cut these to go to where they would just slot and just sit right over these fans. That took a little bit of trial and error to get that done right. So be very careful. But the setup works great. Now the only area problem I did get into is I had to cut this section out right here. These egg turners, it's just spaced perfectly enough to where they're not touching this. But if you'll notice, I had to push these over right up against the edge. So I had to take a notch, and when I took a Dremel with a, I think it was 60 grit sandpaper end, or the little wheel, and it took that right out. Then I had the same issue here. I had to take that little Dremel and notch this section out so these would fit up close to the pipe. And the reason why I had to do that is so the eggs would not be mashed up against here. Now, I just want to go back and emphasize one more thing. This rail is moving, so you've got this little arm. If you'll notice, I had to slot this pretty good, so when this is moving, it's not going to touch it. And I had to let the incubator run, and I basically cut it all the way to this end. And as it was running, I marked and marked and marked, and right here is just about 1/8 of an inch past where this stops turning when it's going that way. And that's how I had to figure that. But the board itself, I had to cut it to fit very, very close. Basically, it goes right around the lip of this, and I had to round the edges and everything to get this to work. And also right here with the wiring, it's got to be pressed close to this side because this comes up, and that's why I came all the way over. There wasn't enough room for the wiring to go through. But what I've done here is I had to rip a notch this thickness, because every incubator is going to be a little bit different, into my foam board. All right. And once I figured that, I basically just glued this foam together. It sits right down around everything really, really snug. You can barely move it. But the lid, you notice I did something a little funny here. I had to put a slight angle on this because the top lid I wanted to sit over it. I mean, it's just a very slight angle. It took, like I said, trial and error to get this together. But the lid sits around this lip, and it makes a really good seal. Man, and the results have been phenomenal. I've gotten really great hatches using this system. And it's a little different. And it cost me down to nothing. I already had the foam, already had the PVC, already had the caps. I think I spent $15 on these little fans. That was it, you know. And you don't have to use this foam. You could get like a 2x4 or something, or like some pine, maybe some thinner pine board, and you could make a little box to go around it and add a layer to your incubator. But the one thing I can say, this pipe being raised up to the top, pulling the hot air down, is a must-have in this to make sure that the air is flowing from this side to that side, and it's constantly circulating, keeping the temperature even, or the bottom's going to get too cold, and all the humidity is going to sit down there too. And that was another thing, is because I didn't take my fogger and move it to the top. I left it in the bottom. And because this has the humidity, it still actually held an even temp on, or humidity on top and bottom, because I would have these constantly running on low, circulating the air. All right, so what have you learned today? You don't have to buy an extra incubator, but you would have to buy an egg turner. You know, it's just something different. It's cheap. You might be able to do this from the stuff you have laying around like I did. Very simple solution. I can run 240 eggs with this incubator, and it's just a little cheap setup. Now, I probably, with my fogger, the temp controller, the fans, overall cost, in reality, I've got about $160 in this. And you know what? When I started, I wanted to make this work, bought the fogger, it just slowly building up things and adding and learning. But this is a really cool little build. In reality, it's very simple. Take the few little tips and tricks that I told you, use them. Because I tell you what, that board that I have the top layer on, I went through a lot of duct tape. I'm not going to lie. I did a whole bunch of hole variations trying to figure it out. And in reality, it was so much simpler. I had the fan blowing up. I tried different things, and it might have been a lot of trial and error, or a lot. But once I got this dialed in, got the fans pulling the heat down, just, did something so simple. I just put the holes in the corners, and sometimes we overcomplicate things, and the simpler design was the better design. Guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Take the tips and tricks you got from this, apply them, come up with your own idea. I know my next build, I'm already kind of concocting making a cabinet incubator, because I actually have 3 egg turner trays. Maybe. But I'm going to take what I've learned in this build and some of my other builds, as far as temperature control, how to set up the fans to make them, circulate the air properly. Man, it just makes a world of difference. The little things you do that can really dial in and make your incubation setup very precise. Now, incubating doesn't have to be a dialed in specific science. There's a lot of fluctuation and variance that these eggs can really handle. So if people are telling you, oh, it's got to be dialed into exactly this, exactly that, oh man, you don't have to do all that, just dry hatch them. There's a lot of opinions, and opinions are like things we can't discuss on here. But everybody's got one. Do like I've done. Do a little trial and error. Try new things that are outside the norm of what everybody else is doing. Because you know what? You can find a better way that somebody else might not have thought of. Guys, thank you for watching my junk build that I've got here. I've gotten a lot of great use out of it. Love the hatches I get out of it. And you know something? When it is locked down, the bottom really is filled up with eggs. I have maxed this amazing little incubator out. But thanks so much for watching. And y'all have a blessed evening. Like, subscribe, share. Somebody else, they want an incubator and they're tired of their little small one and they want to upgrade it for a very cheap price. Let them know about us. Thank you, and God bless you.